Welcome to another episode of the Coffee with Creators podcast. I'm your host, Michael. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, welcome. Welcome. Maybe a little introduction, just in case you are new. My name is Michael, and I am your host, and I am a full-time content creator that started with this journey basically started with my Instagram almost 3 years ago. Now, my co-host Chelsea is on vacation, so she won't be here with us today. However, we do have a special guest who is a lawyer who also creates tech-related content. Please welcome to the podcast, Lizz of Lizz Loves Tech.
Hello. Hi,
Hi,
Michael.
Lizz. Welcome back to the podcast. I know we tried this so many times. Well, actually, not so many times, but we tried this before. It kind of didn't work. So this is our second attempt. So welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited too.
I'm so happy that we finally found the time to do this. I think this is like 2 weeks in the making. Basically just trying to schedule this whole thing. So
yeah, scheduling is hard. I mean, we're both busy, and so.
And that's a reality of it, right? Like people think, oh, you should bring this person to the podcast. You should have this guest. You should create more things. I'm like, well, I do have a life. I do have 2 kids, and I do need sleep. So it is a tricky thing. It's a very tricky thing. So today I'm really happy that we found some time, even though it's towards the end of the day. Normally we record this podcast in the morning. But to you, dear listener, I'm sure you're listening to this on a randomly. Basically, it could be morning, evening, or the afternoon for you. So good morning, good afternoon, or good night. Anyway, Lizz, can you share a little bit about yourself and what you do actually?
Yeah, so I am a content creator on Instagram and YouTube. I mostly do product photography right now, and I've been creating some YouTube videos with just random tech reviews, but also I'm sort of trying to branch out and do travel-related things. So I don't want to limit myself to just tech, but I started out with just tech over on my Instagram at Lizz Loves Tech. And yeah, for whatever reason, people like my photos. And so,
you're too honest. Why wouldn't they like your photos?
Well, when I first started, you just like snap photos with your iPhone. And then all of a sudden I started, using my actual like super old, well, it's not super old, but I had bought it forever ago, my Sony a6000, which I'd bought like literally 5 years ago, and it just sat like collecting dust. And so when I started content creation, I was like, let me try this out. But everything was just on auto. And then, I actually listened to one of your episodes of Coffee with Creators talking about like the basics of photography with, like shutter speed and aperture. And that's sort of, I just started practicing. And the more I practiced, the better I got, I guess.
You got more comfortable, and then you started to understand more of how the actual camera works, and then it's not so scary anymore.
Yeah, still learning though. Definitely still learning. There's so much to learn with photography, so.
Oh, definitely. I'm not an expert. Like, I know online I'm the photographer. You know what I mean? Like Michael, the photographer. But it doesn't mean I know every single thing about photography. It's just that I've practiced enough to be comfortable taking photos in a certain way. And I think a lot of us forget that, you don't necessarily have to know everything, right? So, and, don't beat yourself up too much if you are listening to this and thinking you're having this imposter syndrome. This is really an interesting subject. Lizz is laughing because just right before we recorded, we were actually talking about this imposter syndrome. But we'll get into a little bit into that in a little bit. But for now, I want to focus more on Lizz. I want to know, Lizz, you said that your day job essentially is you are a lawyer.
Yes.
I'm very, very curious. Very, very curious because to me personally, I think law and content creation seem like they are vastly different from each other. So did you find a lot of resistance internally diving into content creation, or was it, more like second nature to you?
I think, the term second nature kind of hits home because content creation for me started out just as, sort of a side thing, as something that I was passionate about. I loved looking at Instagram and seeing, different tech photos and desk setups. And so that's sort of how I got into the tech community. And it was all just from my passions. And I used to work for Best Buy for like or 4 years. And then I actually worked at Apple for a couple months. But then, so I've always loved tech. Like I've always been, anytime people have questions about tech, they would always come to me, like my real friends. And so it's funny now because a lot of my like real friends, I feel they follow me on my tech account. And so they're like, oh, this is perfect for you. Like, this is exactly who you are. And so, yeah, I have like my day job as my career because that sort of pays the bills. And I'm passionate about it, but I sort of grew up like knowing that I wanted to be a lawyer. But I think that's because it was sort of ingrained in me by watching a lot of Law and Order.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say. So it seems like there wasn't so much of an internal struggle with you, trying out, content creation. So that's actually really refreshing to hear. And my next question was going to be how are your friends reacting to it, or how are the people in your life reacting to this this venture? And it seems like it's very positive.
Yeah.
Is that correct? It's safe to assume it's very positive because, like you said, people are following. So, I guess my other question, and I was thinking about this before I had you on the podcast, is that, gee whiz, it's just like so different. You know what I mean? I couldn't process it. My background was I always drew as a kid. I loved to draw, loved to paint, loved to just create things as far as I could remember. And, I grew up kind of lost that passion because I just wanted to try something new. Yeah. And then rediscovered that, when I turned into an adult and basically, this turned into this. But, for me personally, it was a natural progression. You know what I mean? It's a natural, I guess, pathway for me to follow. But when I'm listening to, or when I'm reading your bio, if there is a bio, I'm just reading it. It's like Lizz, law, and then content creation. It's just so different. So I couldn't even imagine what it would feel like. But for people who might be in the same situation, or maybe not necessarily the same situation, but who could be in a different field but want to try something, that's related to like content creation. For you, Lizz, what's the biggest takeaway that you can share with them for people who might be in completely different fields?
I think my biggest piece of advice would be to just, if you're interested in it, if you're interested in content creation, just start doing it. Like, you're not going to lose anything if you start doing it. And you start out small. Like, you start out, everybody has a phone, everyone takes a photo, or everyone can film a video if they want to start a YouTube channel. And even if it's not something that really connects to your day job, you can still find the time, like on the weekends or your days off to do it. And if it's something that's enjoyable, then that's something you can pursue. But if you try it and you're like, you know what, this is too much, I'm not interested in it, then, you just move on and you stay going with your day job. But for me, like, I have fallen in love with content creation. And so now I'm like balancing the day job and, the content creation, which has been a struggle because now that I've sort of become, I don't even want to say become more established, but kind of, now that I've been being taken more seriously, it's like, how do I properly manage my time between the job that really, really brings in the money versus the job that I'm really passionate about, and also sort of giving me a little bit of income, but mostly just like play money.
Yeah. So right now it's just like a hobby, kind of like a hobby.
Exactly. Yeah. And everyone has hobbies. Like, you can't think of content creation as something like you're jumping into as a job, because you're not going to start off as it being a job. It starts off as being something that you're probably passionate about, and then you move forward, and then it becomes a job.
That's actually a really, really good point, because I think, myself included, I used to think that there's this pressure for me when I started creating content. And because previously I was a graphic designer, and that was paying the bills. And, there was really no reason for me to even think of going full-time content creation. So the only reason I actually did was because I lost all my clients during the pandemic. You know what I mean? Everyone, businesses were shutting down and there was no work for me. So I had to find a way. But then still, I never really thought about it as like an actual career shift. Like to me, it was basically a hard shift, right? Like I was forced to do it.
Yeah.
And maybe some people feel like they need to give up what they're doing right now to pursue this, but you are absolutely correct. You can actually treat it as a hobby. Just treat it as a hobby. There's no pressure. And I think the only point that you have to try to make is to try to enjoy it and see if you do enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because if you do enjoy it, you'll be coming back. You'll keep coming back. And if not, then at least you know. And to let what Liz says, it's correct. You just have to start because otherwise you're never going to find out.
Yeah, 100%. And I think what you said about, it being a hobby first, like if you treat it as a hobby, you're going to like it. It's going to be enjoyable. But if you treat it as, oh my gosh, I need this to be my full-time job, you're going to stress yourself out and you're going to feel overwhelmed. I mean, I can't imagine, what you were saying, like you were, not that you were forced into content creation, but like you needed to make a living. And so that in itself can become stressful too. A lot of people think like content creation or being a freelancer is super easy and it's great. There's all these benefits but really like it can be really stressful. And
yeah.
So you have to, and when it becomes a hobby and then it sort of starts to trickle into becoming a real job, then that's when you sort of have to make the decision of how do you really balance this and where do you want to move forward.
And it seems like on your end, it seems like it's slowly materializing into that. Like it's getting more serious. Not to say that you're going to give up your day job anytime soon, but it seems like there's promise there. So I'm going to ask you the hard question then. If it does take off, Liz, and I don't see why it won't, are you going to just dive right in and say, all right, I'll do this?
I would 100% do that. I would love to do this full time. Not that
That's
I
awesome.
don't, I mean, it's hard because I'm still such a new lawyer. So I just got barred in January of this year. And funny enough, that's the exact same time that I started my Instagram. So I've actually grown as a content creator and as a lawyer all at the same time. So I've dealt with all the struggles of both, contemporaneously. So, it's hard to say. Like right now, since I'm sort of struggling in my day job, I feel like, oh, I would love to just do content creation forever. Like that would be awesome if it could really pay the bills, because it's something I'm passionate about.
Here's an interesting thought, and I just thought about this because when I think of like people that I follow, the people that I love to follow the most, they're mostly people who are just sharing aspects of their life that is natural to them. For example, like this guy who is an engineer, and he started a YouTube channel talking about engineering stuff, like
John.
I'm obviously not an engineer if I say engineering stuff. No, yeah, it's to me, all he's doing is just sharing what he knows, right? Yeah. And he is a full-time content creator now. And I think, so to that point, since you started, you got barred, have you gotten any questions from people who know that you're a lawyer? Like, how do I follow the same path? Like, how do I become a lawyer? Is that even the right question?
No, that's
how
a right
do I
question.
become a lawyer?
Yeah,
okay.
That's a question.
Okay,
Are you asking if people, like my tech audience, ask that, or just people in general?
Your tech audience.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't gotten that question.
Okay.
And I think that's because I don't think so many people know that I'm a lawyer. I have this sort of, I don't want to say I'm ashamed to be a lawyer, but I have like imposter syndrome because I don't feel like I'm a real lawyer yet. And then, I don't know.
Okay, well, this is a good segue to talk about that.
I don't know. It's just like, it's weird. I think it's almost like I keep my lawyer life separate from my content creation life. And I don't know why. I think because a lot of people don't like lawyers. But here I am.
Oh, you feel like there's a negative.
There's like a sort of a stigma to it. Or like, I don't want people to think I'm like uptight or, like I make too much money because I'm a lawyer when like I definitely don't. So that was a lie, and I have a lot of student loans. So if you want to go to law school, make sure you go on like a full scholarship because law school is not cheap.
It's expensive.
Thank God for the pandemic in the sense that I don't have to start paying my loans yet until next year.
Yeah. Okay,
Anyways,
so
yeah.
so it's just maybe okay, maybe instead of looking at it from that perspective where people might think, or you're afraid that the term lawyer or that title represents you in a very, maybe not such a good light.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could approach it as, this is my opportunity to break that stigma.
Yeah.
This is the opportunity for me to show people that we're people too, and
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that we have to wear suits all the time and point our fingers like this to people. And it's just, but my question, I guess, is that, would you be opposed to, like, if someone asked you, like, hey Liz, I want to follow the same path, I want to take law, what did you do? Because I find that there's a lot of creators out there whose content mainly revolves around decisions that they've made in their personal lives, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty cool thing. But I obviously, I'm just asking you. I'm not saying you should do it, but I'm just asking you, what do you think of this?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to answering that question. I feel like I definitely, I know how I became a lawyer, and I know I'm like, I don't want to say I'm an expert, but I'm definitely knowledgeable, and I'm always happy to share. So, yeah, I guess.
It,
What
so
the question again, maybe?
no. I mean, I guess what I was trying to get was
Yeah.
that you can actually create content around that. You
Yeah.
don't necessarily
Okay.
have to. Yeah, you don't necessarily have to. Like, I don't know, focus on law in general as
Yes.
content. But I mean, you have your own niche. I'm not saying you should switch or anything, but it's just one of those things that popped into my head, and I just had to ask it. Like, are you avoiding, creating content around that aspect? That's why I had to ask if people
I,
were asking you.
I get it.
And also earlier, if you remember, if you recall, I was texting you or DMing you, saying, do you want me to call you a lawyer? Because I wasn't sure if you want that to be known. But yeah, it seems like
I
it.
don't mind. Yeah. And to your point, I guess the reason why I haven't like sort of created content surrounding my job as a lawyer, I think because I'm not super comfortable in my job as a lawyer yet, and I'm still trying to figure out like my career path and like what type of law I want to do, and like I would love to intersect them, like to do intellectual property law to like help creators protect their rights or like their like their work product. That would be super awesome for me, but I have absolutely no experience or knowledge about it, because just because you went to law school doesn't mean you know all parts of
Everything.
law.
Yeah, yeah.
But I
So
know there are like a couple of content creators like who specifically are lawyers, but they talk about like protecting your rights as a content creator, and like they give out, I don't want to say they give out advice, but kind of. So, yeah.
that's actually pretty cool. I've never heard of those type of channels. And when you
Mhm.
mentioned it, I'm like, ooh, I'm actually interested in that. Like, I
Mhm.
want to know.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's go
There
back
we
to
go.
the hot topic then,
Okay.
which is imposter syndrome.
Okay.
And I know this topic always comes up in the creative field, in the content creation field,
Mhm.
basically any field where you feel like you are front and center,
Mhm.
right? Like, you don't even have to be like visible anywhere. You can have imposter syndrome when you're in, with a group of friends or your peers, and
Yeah.
but it's a real thing.
Mhm.
And earlier, if I may share it, like Liz was sharing with me, she was saying that she felt, actually you did mention it. You said that you felt uncomfortable mentioning that you were, or kind of like hovering over the topic that you are a lawyer, because you felt like you don't know everything.
Yeah.
And the best way that I could, maybe my attempts at like trying to make Liz feel better, was to share my own story yesterday. And this happened yesterday. It's kind of fresh. So without trying to take up too much time, I'm going to give you the short story. So basically, I had a meeting yesterday with the wrong group of people. I thought I was meeting with someone else. Instead, I was meeting with a group of people that I was not expecting. And I had no idea who these people were. I was just lucky that I had my good camera on. I was wearing a shirt that wasn't my pajamas. And, the guy who was the owner of the company said, "Oh, look at you. You are prepared for this. That's actually a really good sign, because we're looking for people who look like they know what they're doing." So, you know what I mean? When they said that, the imposter syndrome just kicked me in the butt, because it's like, I don't know who this person is, but I'm right in front of the camera and he's asking me all these questions. And, you know, I just deduced basically that they were an agency and they were looking for someone to represent a company who wanted to share like a certain product. And so they were looking for influencers essentially. And they were asking me all these questions. But if there's anything that I've learned from Coffee with Creators, is that everything just doesn't work. So like I'm always unprepared. But I've learned to work through this uncomfortable situation. So what I did in that moment, like in my head, I'm panicking. In my head, everything is on fire. But what I did was I just put on my game face and I started like answering their questions very confidently, and to the point where they were asking me for my my media kit and like the rates, right? Like how much would it cost us to, you know, for us to work with you on this project, you know? And I was telling Liz earlier that I was so uncomfortable, but the only thing that kept ringing in my head is that don't give out a number that will make you feel like you got taken advantage of. Because my brain was so racked at this point that I don't have a specific I don't have a specific like a package tailored for them. Because usually that's how I present myself. If someone wants to work with me, I tailor my package to what they need, right? And then I have a bullet list of bulleted items of what they can expect, of deliverables, right? So I was just spewing out numbers, but they were relatively higher than what, you know, than what I normally would say, because, you know, I was just trying to protect myself. And so the meeting ended well, actually. It actually ended well. But the imposter syndrome still kept like knocking on my door, and they're like, hey, you don't know what you're doing. And especially for that number that we ended up with, it was something that's fairly new to me. And I started to ask myself, am I worth it? Am I worth that amount? And so I was so bothered by it that I had to reach out to a friend and call him. And I'm like, you are, you know, I need your perspective on this, because I am just like kicking myself right now. I'm not really sure if I did the right thing. And luckily this person knows what I'm going through. And so he understands like the situation. And so he told me, he said that, it's good that, you know, I did the right thing, basically is what he's saying. It's because I'm protecting myself, my brand, and the company knows what they already know what I am able to do. And so basically by giving out that number, that specific number, it was just confirmation for them. Like, okay, we can work with us. We'd love to work with you. So that's all. And so he's like, don't worry too much about what, you know, if you're thinking that suddenly, I mean, I didn't promise them anything. I didn't promise them I'll be flying, you know what I mean? Or doing anything ridiculous. So
Yeah.
to what he was saying basically is that you're still you, you know what I mean? And then I told this to Liz, and she's like, she started like basically comforting me. She's like, no, it's okay, Michael. You know, don't, you know, make sure that you know your value and stuff like that. And so imposter syndrome is a real thing, is my point. So that short story became long, but
It's all right.
Liz,
It's true though. I mean, everybody goes through it. Everybody goes through imposter syndrome, and you just have to remember, like, your time is valuable, your work is valuable. And I think you posted something today about like, do you give away your thoughts for free or something like that, right? You posted on your story, and it got me thinking, like, that's so true. I mean, that sort of connects to my job as a lawyer. Like, we don't just give away our advice for free, you know?
Yeah.
And same thing with content creators. Like, you shouldn't just give out, or like, you know, you shouldn't just give out your work for free. And so it's good that you're valuing yourself, because let's face it, these brands, like, they can pay you. They can. They have money. Like, they just don't want to. And they, like, I think influencer marketing is still so new to a lot of brands, but it's huge and it's continuing to grow. And it's becoming like the best place for advertisements. I mean, I can't imagine how much people make for like ads on TikToks, you know, because TikTok is really, really popular right now. And I'm bummed that I'm like not on. I mean, I'm on TikTok, but not really. Like, I just have a couple things on there. But, you know, like, there's these just funny people that get paid to do like stupid stuff.
And it's the messaging. It's the messaging. And it's not necessarily that. Here's the thing. This is why I'm so obsessed with branding yourself. Like, just like, for example, Liz. when you started your tech channel, did you? Okay, actually, let's talk about this one for a second. When you started your tech channel, your tech Instagram account, did you ever have an idea of like how you were going to position yourself or brand yourself, or were you just like, I'm just going to start sharing?
No, all I did was want to just take a photo of my phone, and I hoped and prayed that I would just get like a free phone case. And then now I have way too many phone cases, Michael. Like I just have I have way too many. And you know, it's funny because that's really what I wanted. When I started this page, I was like, I want to get free product. Like that's so cool. Oh my God. And now I'm like, I don't take your stuff unless you pay me.
Exactly. Oh my God, I'm so happy. Yeah. I'm so happy because it's like a lot of people, and I think for a lot of people that it really does start like that.
You have to. You have to build your portfolio, and you got to put in the work.
Yeah. And also the fact that you just want something free. You know what I mean? But that's the problem though. Like, would you, was this your experience as well? Like when I started, my first product endorsement, I think if I remember correctly, my first product endorsement was a cable for a charger. Not even the charger, just the cable. And I felt so like, whoa, I really have to deliver this above. I have to go above and beyond because they gave me free cables.
It's like, it cost them like nothing to send it to you.
Cost them nothing. But to me, like that's the problem. That's the problem with the journey early on because you feel like your value is only tied into the product itself. So, and this is a very important lesson that I've shared many times in the past, but the realization for me came when a big brand reached out to me and they said they wanted to share or they wanted to send me a product that was expensive and it's basically they're sending it to me for free. And they kept reiterating that they're saying, this is free. Remember, it's expensive. So they kept hammering it in my head that this is expensive, so I should be so lucky to get it, right? But the problem was I gave up the rights to all those photos that I gave them, and they asked for like 30 photos or something. And I said, yeah, okay. Yeah.
No, why did you do that?
Because I was new and young and, well, not that young, but younger. And I didn't know what I was doing. And, you know, my problem was, again, the imposter syndrome, right? Like, I'm like, who am I? Like, I don't have any other value than I take nice pictures. That's it. And so when they started giving out my photos to big accounts to share, basically accounts that had millions of followers, they were sharing my photos. And then those accounts were tagging it as a paid collaboration with XYZ. That meant they were getting paid to share that photo that I took. And the only payment that I got was that one product. Felt really sick to my stomach, and I had to message one of those accounts because actually one of them were not friends, but I've DM'd them a couple of times in the past, and they're like, I said, how did you get this photo? And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, you know, they just sent this to me and they said to share it with my audience. And so he even was so kind enough to actually open up the conversation between me and the company, and they said, hey, Michael said that this photo belongs to him, and you know, you're giving it to me so I can share it with other people, and you're paying me. And so the company is like, well, you know, if you read the fine print, it says that you're giving us the full rights. And obviously that was my mistake. Yeah. But it's a hard lesson, you know, for me. I'm like, okay, now I know that you know, there's more value to it than just photos. And you know, sure enough, as soon as I just realized that, you'll be surprised, actually. You'll be surprised at how many people want to work with you if you know that. Yeah.
That's true.
Was that your experience too? Like, did you feel like your value was kind of tied into that one thing, or maybe you're smarter than me?
No, I do feel that same way. And I feel like if a brand is going to take your photo, put it on their website or put it on their Instagram, then they're going to sell a product, make some money from it, and yet I don't get any compensation. Like that's messed up. Like, you know,
that's messed up.
Yeah.
Right.
And so this is why, like, sort of where I would want to sort of intersect my law and content creation is like, I want to protect creators. I want to learn how to protect creators from that kind of stuff. And it's hard. Like, I'm guilty of it too. Like, yeah, I charge some brands for photos, but you know, at the end of the day, like, they shouldn't have rights to all my photos for forever, because then they can just use it for
Yes,
whatever
reuse
they
it.
want. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, but at the time when you're like still new, you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll get paid like a couple $100 for that photo. Like it didn't take me much, but then these brands are gonna profit off of it for like they're gonna profit probably thousands off of a photo. I mean, there's one brand in particular that they only do product exchanges, and I've seen them like run ads on people's videos and photos. And
I
like
know who this is.
I will like message the like because I know whose photo they're using, and I'm like I message them like, hey, like, did they ask you for permission to run this ad? Like, are you getting paid for it? And they're like, what? I didn't know that they were like doing that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like the ads go not just on Instagram but on Facebook too, and so
On YouTube, Facebook, and it's like it's a fully produced commercial basically.
yeah, mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
And
I know
you know,
that one. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and I grew
I
up
know
in the
people.
world. I took advertising when I was in college, so I actually majored in advertising, and during that time, the early 2000s, advertising was so different. And this is always my argument. My argument is that when you you would pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to put an ad on a billboard, which you are only hoping that your ideal customer, your ideal demographic is going to pass by, going 65 miles an hour, reading a short message, and you're hoping that that will help them remember or maybe even prompt them to act and buy your product, right? That's a very short messaging. And here, especially in California, there's lots of laws when it comes to billboards, like billboards can't be lit up at night, and billboards, and obviously the location, like if you are posting on a prime location, then it's going to be more expensive, and it's only temporary. It's going to be like, I can only afford a month, right? That's not even paying the printer. That's not even paying the graphic designer, the photographer, the art director, or whoever else, everything else, all the legal stuff. And brands are now reaching out to influencers so that they can, and guess what, right? Is this your experience as well, Liz? They ask you for your analytics. Have you experienced like someone reaching out to you and ask for your analytics and demographics first before they decide?
To see who your audience is and like what your reach is.
Yeah. So guess what? All our audiences, our specific audiences, are very direct because people follow our content for a specific reason.
Yeah.
So that's direct demographic. So that's way, way better already
than
than
just
the
the
billboard.
freeway. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what they're going to say, you should be so lucky because we're giving you a free product that costs $500. It's like, oh, wow.
If that.
Yeah, if that, exactly.
That's if you're lucky and you're getting something good.
You know?
Most of the time, it's not that much.
Most of the time, it's not. And you know, so what do you say usually when someone says it's a product exchange? What do you tell them?
I just say I can only commit to paid collaborations at this time.
Yeah.
Or I'll say, well, I guess if they explicitly tell me it's product exchange, I just say, all right, well, I can only do paid. Because especially if I don't want the product, there are certain brands where I want the product and I'm okay. And a lot of times the brands, these brands that I'm thinking of, they're not really asking for anything in return. So they're hoping that I'm going to go and like love their product and then go post about it. But they're not explicitly saying, hey, I need you to post this. And so one, it feels like less pressure. And two, if it's good product, like, I don't mind sharing my honest thoughts about it because I actually wanted it to begin with. Like if I wanted to spend my own money on it, then that's how I know it's a good product.
That's actually that's definitely a good tactic that a lot of these brands are trying out. Yeah. I'm not saying, first of all, for anyone who's listening and who's new, I'm not saying say no to all of them right away. If you are starting out, yes, you need to get some of these under your belt first. Know the ins and outs of like collaborations. And that's actually collaboration now. The word collaboration is actually another word for work for us for free. That's another term. And that's the reality of it. But there are wonderful, wonderful brands out there. I can name a couple already, just the top of my head, who are more than super supportive with their creators. And to what Liz said, like their products are so good that you just cannot stop talking about them. Yeah. You just love them. You would buy them yourself if you had the choice. Actually, you do have the choice, but you would buy them yourself. And now when they share it with you, you have the choice to say yes or no. You don't
Right.
always have to say yes if they share it with you and they say, this is free. We're not giving you any pressure to share it on your social or anything like that. If you don't like that product, don't say yes. Don't feel like you have to say yes. You can just say decline them, like respectfully. Um, but yeah, it's one of those things that you will eventually learn. But get those go. I'll say it, Liz. Get those free collaborations under your belt first. Go ahead,
Yeah.
go try them out. Just know that you might feel a little sick later.
Yeah.
What?
And,
Well,
yeah. And know your worth too. I mean, at some point, and it should be like quick. I feel like it's quick for most people. You realize this is your time. This is like your time is money. Your time is valuable. And you'd be surprised. Like brands are willing to pay, even if it's something small. I mean, and it'll show the brand that you value your work, and it'll make them take you a little bit more seriously too, I think.
yeah.
So, and also what's helpful is talking to other creators too. I mean, I have been in a lot of like different group chats or like messages and about, you know, how much or like, are you charging this brand or like, so that, one person's not being like sort of scammed, and like getting taken advantage of. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's good to be transparent with, like when people ask me questions, I'm like, I'm an open book. Like, yeah, sure. Here's what I do.
It's actually very useful. I mean, it's very helpful to do that. And that's what we've been trying to create in this space. Basically, a forum, if you will, for creators to just kind of discuss, what was your experience and what did you learn from it? Because you said this earlier in the beginning of the podcast, like influencer marketing is very new. Oh my God, Liz, I cannot tell you how new it is. I've had meetings with a bunch of brands, and I promise you, none of them know what they're doing. I promise you, none of them. And, a lot of them have very good intentions, very, very good intentions, but they are also figuring it out as much as we are all doing this, because this is so new. This kind of came out of the, just like randomly. Before, the expensive advertising used to be, or one of the expensive advertising used to be testimonials. Basically, they hire celebrities to say good things about the products. But they realize that as, society evolves and YouTube has grown into this massive thing, that when we buy products, we don't even read magazines anymore. We don't listen to editors. We listen to regular people. Right?
And
we go on YouTube. And
we are the regular people. We're not
Exactly.
Kim Kardashian. We're not. Like, okay, yeah, maybe I'll buy something if Kim Kardashian likes it, but I'm more likely to buy it if someone that I know and I can relate to has bought it.
Yes.
So you're exactly right.
Shoppers are smarter now, and I think brands are recognizing that. And that's why you, dear creator, have the power. You have that responsibility. I would say that responsibility to make it, it's important. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's important for us as a community to give as much information and, share experience, because we're all figuring this out together. And if we can do that, we can set a standard, right? Because it does take a lot of time. It does take a lot of effort. And I'm sure, Liz, you've probably gotten this same comment before. I'm not sure, but I always get comments like, "Oh, you got that for free. That's why you're saying that." And so my argument would always be, nothing is free. I mean, the only time this thing would be considered as free is if I were not to do anything with it. They just gave it to me, and I can just sit on it or enjoy it. You know what I mean? And just use it without sharing it. Then that's free.
Yeah.
But the fact that I have to create content and share my thoughts, put my name out there, risk my own personal branding for this company, for this product, that's not free. That's actually a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To all your
so-
haters on YouTube. Because I know you get a lot of trolls on your YouTube telling you that. But that's just because they're jealous of you. It's good.
It's also, people like to discredit people just because they feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Honestly, the easiest way for me to process trolls is I imagine them to be my little nephews and nieces. I have a bunch. Like whenever I walk in the house and they're everywhere, I get sick all the time because they're like dirty little hands on my face. I've shared a couple of those in my stories before, and they say the nastiest things. and they're quick too. They're very they're witty. And so sometimes you're just like, you have to know how to, how to kind of roll with the punches. And so whenever someone's being mean, I just imagine them to be my 8-year-old nephew. It's like, what would I tell my 8-year-old nephew? I'll probably tell them this. So it's just that's how we treat it. And then it makes me feel better because, at the end of the day, they're also increasing my engagement. They're also increasing my views. And so I actually have to thank them for that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they obviously
really
watched
topic.
part of the video if they're going to talk smack about it.
Well, my favorites are the ones that assume a lot of things that basically clearly points out that they did not watch the entire video. They'll say,
that too.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, why would you say this? That means you did not watch the video. Like, you literally just skipped the whole thing. Because,
the answer was there?
It's hilarious. So, going to YouTube, Liz, I know you just recently started creating content on YouTube. How does that feel compared to your Instagram?
It's a lot more work, and it's hard. YouTube is so hard.
It's a different beast.
Thing. Yeah, it's one thing to pick up a camera, play with some settings, and then edit it in Lightroom and take a photo and edit it on Lightroom. It's another thing to plan a video and edit a video and know how to film good B-roll. That's rough. Yeah. Sorry, are there dogs? Is that dogs here? Oh, it's here.
It's okay.
Sorry. I thought you could hear. Could you hear it?
I can hear it. Yeah.
I live in an apartment complex, so
there's
just only so much I can control. Sorry, it's at least not Chelsea's dogs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, have you not heard Chelsea's dog?
Yeah.
I have always said this though. I've always said that I don't mind at all any of this stuff because I know we get into our it's our standards, right? We want to present ourselves in the best way. Yeah. But honestly, to me personally, I am completely fine if your baby walks in, if you have a kid, or if your pet walks in, or whatever it is. Because just the last episode, was it the last episode? The 2 episodes ago, I had planes passing by. I had buses and garbage trucks and it's like, I'm a real person. I don't live in a mansion with my own huge estate. It's a little house here, so it's normal. So it's completely
anyways
fine.
Sorry. And I got the new headphones too, so I was like, why can I hear the dogs? I thought it was supposed to be noise canceling. But I think the mic was picking up, and then it's going through my headphones.
Yeah. I could hear them faintly though. So, but don't worry about it.
Yeah. Anyways, YouTube's definitely a different beast. But it's fun. It's definitely fun, and it really takes. I mean, I don't want to say it just takes one video to sort of take off, but when one video gets traction, you're like, oh, cool. I did something right. Or people find this valuable. And I think that's the whole, that's how you become successful on YouTube is you have to put something out there that people are going to find relatable and valuable, because no one's going to sit there and watch unless you're really established, people, who do a bunch of vlogs. I feel like if you do vlogs, you're watching it because you like that person, and you only start to like that person after you've created sort of I don't want to say your brand, but the people know who you are and they know what to expect.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
there are, and you've said this before, you want people to follow you because they like you and and what you like, not just because you're the desk guy or whatever. Yeah. So, I'm hoping to build that for myself too, and that people like me and what I'm interested in. So I don't want to
why they won't.
Yeah. So that's the plan.
That's good though. I feel like you're already ahead of the curve, honestly, because you are aware of these things. It's so hard. In the beginning, there was no one that I could turn to and just ask questions, literally no one. And, I'm hoping that this podcast, and thank you for being here, by the way, Liz, to share your experiences, because these are the type of things that I needed to hear a long time ago. You know what I mean? These are the things that I wanted to hear. So going back to YouTube, though, you said that you've had some videos that performed rather well. Yeah. Do you have a couple that were not so well? How do you feel about those?
Well, since I'm still so new, I just tell myself, my first 50 videos are going to be bad. And as long as I get better each time, that's what really matters. So, I mean, it is sad to it's not sad. I just know, hey, that's something that didn't work. That's not something that caught people's eye. And so I should do something different. So I try to learn from the videos that don't do so well.
It's actually, that's a very good point because I was listening to, do you know who the Chris Do is? Or Chris Do,
No.
I don't know why I add the in the beginning, but his name is Chris Do.
Okay.
He basically runs the channel. Well, he doesn't run it, his team runs it. The Future.
Okay.
So it's you can search it on YouTube. It's the and FUTUR without the E at the end. And they share a lot of like these really valuable like basically perspective experience for creatives in general. Very, very good. And I was just listening to his episode today, and he was sharing they were talking about done is better than perfect or something like that. I can't remember, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So the example that he gave was that in a book, and I cannot remember the book, but basically two groups of students were asked by their professor to create I think it's like pottery or something like that, and they were going to be graded in each group was going to be graded in different ways. Basically, group one needed to create as many as they could, and they would weigh it. They have to hit a certain weight, and depending on that, if they hit that weight, then they get an A.
Yeah.
If it's below that weight, they get a B. So they have to make as many as they can, right? The
Okay.
other one, they only had to make one, but this one had to be perfect, absolutely perfect. If it's perfect, then they get an A. So sure enough, like the whole semester, finishes, and they brought in their projects. So group A, who had to make the most, they weighed it, and then group B, who had to make one, showed their final result. Surprisingly, the one with the best quality was from group A.
Yeah.
The one that had to make a bunch of them.
Wow.
And the reason is because repetition. Throughout this process that they're making one after the other, they're learning. They're learning from their mistakes, they're refining it, and they're getting better. But the other one, they just had to sit there and theorize as to like which is going to be the perfect one. Like, how are you going to make this perfect? But they only had one example because they only had to work on it once.
Yeah.
And so my point is, yes, some of the videos are going to suck. Some, and actually, even to me, like when I started my journey, I wanted to make a video every week just because I know they were going to suck. And so my goal is to try to not suck
Each time.
as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And repetition is going to help you. But I don't know even how we got to this topic. Sometimes I get lost.
YouTube.
Sorry.
No, it makes sense
YouTube,
though.
Yeah, that's right.
Repetition. That's the goal. But it's hard. Like to post a video each week, it's tough because creating a YouTube video takes a lot of time. It takes way longer than taking photos, in my opinion. And so, when you're balancing a full-time job, you're like,
It's
you can only
super hard.
you can only film on the weekends and then maybe edit in the evenings on weekdays. But
that's
you're
pretty
right
much
that
it.
consistency is key. And I notice, when I start to become a little bit more consistent, like maybe there's a month where I put out 3 or 4 videos, I start to gain some momentum. But then when I take a break and I stop, it's like, well, no, I'm not growing anymore because, unless one of my videos is getting some traction through the YouTube algorithm.
Right.
But
Yeah, and
you know,
those happen. Yeah, those
it
happen.
does. Yeah, like one of my videos, like for like pop sockets or whatever, which is relatable because people love pop sockets. It's doing really well. It's like almost at 20,000 views, which is a lot for me because I only have like 400 subscribers. So
That's a lot. That's a lot.
I need the 1,000.
Yeah.
I need the 1,000 and I need the 4,000 watch hours. But surprisingly, I'm at like a little over 2,000 watch hours. So I'm
You
like,
see that?
I'm halfway there, and I'm like,
You're halfway there, yeah.
It's pushing me to want to create more, to do more, to then get to the sort of goal of the YouTube partner program, But it's hard.
I'm so excited for you.
Okay, it's
'Cause
gonna
I know that
take
feeling.
a while. Yeah, it's gonna take a while.
No, it's not going to take a while. You just feel like it's going to take it's not. It's going to be quicker than you think.
Yeah,
Seriously,
that's if I
yeah.
put in the work, though. That's
There you
that's
go.
the key. I have to put in the work. So
You do have to put in the work. So, well, I'm glad though. I'm glad that your journey seems to be like, we're almost at the end of the year.
yeah,
But consider this: like last year, you didn't have a YouTube channel. Last year, you didn't have an Instagram channel. But look at this, right?
Yeah.
What kind of venture, like business venture, even like a small time business venture, if you think about it that way, can you grow in such a short amount of time, right?
Yeah.
What can you establish like that quickly? And it's amazing what you can do if you just start, right? You just start and just keep at it, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine, I promise you. I actually saw your last, maybe it's not your last video, but the one when you visited the Apple, what was it again, Liz?
The Apple Tower Theater.
Apple Tower Theater in LA. I didn't know that existed. How was that experience?
It was cool. It was really fun. It's really just a fancy Apple store that was built in an old historic movie theater in LA. So they basically just revamped it up, and then they threw in an Apple store, which is cool. And I actually got to meet up with another fellow creator, which was really fun. I got to meet
saw
Renz.
that one.
Yeah, I got to meet Renz in person, and it's actually really funny because the world is so small, especially with Filipinos, I feel. But he is like BFFs with my first cousin. And so,
No way.
yeah, like literally, it was weird. Like we were probably at the same birthday party one time, and like we didn't even know.
How cool is that?
Yeah, but it was cool to meet him and like to go tour the Apple Tower Theater. It's really pretty. I mean, the inside it's like an Apple store. It just has the fancy like walls and stuff. So if you're in LA, you should check it out. But LA traffic sucks. So
I know that's the thing.
I don't like recommending going to LA because I hate LA traffic. But I was in the area anyways, so that's why we met up.
I see. And I understand you're also trying to get more into travel content that's kind of related to tech. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm trying to get into more travel content, not necessarily tech. I mean, it could be. I think the Apple Tower Theater was a perfect sort of segue or perfect like mix of it because it had a little bit of tech and it had a little bit of the travel vlog feel. But yeah, I wanted to start doing like travel YouTube videos only because I went on vacation 2 months ago. And prior to vacation, I was looking up, reviews for the hotel that I was going to be staying at. And I couldn't find anything. And so I thought to myself, how cool would it be if, I can film a pretty quick video. It wasn't quick. It actually took a long time to edit. Because, YouTube is hard.
Yeah,
but,
YouTube is hard.
If I can share my experience and it'll help somebody else, why not do it? Like, if I'm going to travel anyways, I might as well create a video about it. So that's, like, sort of my goal to, like, travel more. Obviously, that's awesome. But, it's hard with COVID and with a real job.
But that's the thing, though. Like, that's actually a question that a lot of people are asking, right? Like, how is it to travel
during COVID,
post-pandemic? Yeah, if you can actually say post-pandemic, but you know what I mean, right? It's scary, and so content like that I think is very relevant.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And the reason why I decided to do it was because my parents, they travel a lot, and they were like, you should start filming YouTube because, people like for traveling, they get a lot of views and blah, blah, blah. And you're already traveling. And I was like, okay, I'll make, you know how parents are. They're like,
I love how supportive your parents are.
This. No, they're great. And you know, what's so funny is my parents, they just went on like a European cruise. And my dad, he's so cute. He has like a little DJI Osmo and he filmed like pretty much everything their entire trip, and they went to like a ton of different countries, and he just posted his first little YouTube video of what it's like to get COVID tested in Italy because no one knows like how to do it, because it's all so new. Like each country has a different like QR code to scan or like what to do, and so he was like, I'm just gonna put it in iMovie and like tell people how to do it.
Is that?
And
you have the coolest dad. Seriously.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a cute like little 4-minute video, and
but that is
I'm
cool
hoping
though.
He's gonna do it more.
He sees the value in it. It's to him more. It's more than just creating something for the sake of creating it. It's he wants to help people.
Yeah,
he wants to help people understand, or at least take a little bit of that anxiety away by knowing what to expect. Right. So that's so awesome. I love that. Your parents are so awesome. I've never met them, but they sound super awesome.
I'm going to tell them to listen, and then they'll be excited.
That's so great. All right, Liz. Well, we probably gotten to the end of the hour. I think a little bit over. I'm not really sure because we were chatting for a little bit right before this. So I don't want to take up all of your time, but I do appreciate you being on the show. And I would love, 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 love to have you back if you are free. Yeah.
I would love to be back once our schedules align again.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, we barely touch on the things that I think there's so many things that we want to talk about, especially your journey. So I want to hear more of that the next time I have you on. Doors are always open. And before we go, though, I would love it if you could share with the listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, of course. You can find me on Instagram at Lizz Loves Tech. And Lizz is with 2 Z's because when I was in like 7th grade, I wanted to be different and add a second Z to my name. So there's nothing special about the extra Z. And then on YouTube, you can just you can probably search up Lizz Loves Tech or Liz Demano, and I'll be there and you can watch all my fun videos.
Here's a quirky question. Can they ask you things related to your day job?
Of course. I'm always an open book. I may not have the right answer, but I can definitely try.
She can guide you guys. She can
I can guide you to the right place. Experience.
Yes, there you go. That's what most people just need, a little bit of guidance. So that's awesome. Exactly. Thank you so much, Liz, for being here on today's show. I really, really appreciate it. Actually, just a couple of things that I wanted to mention. As much as we love doing this, the Coffee and Creators podcast is not a self-sustaining show just yet, meaning we are funding this show all on our own. So we would very much love it if you could support the show by sharing it and rating us on whatever platform that you are able, that you can. Reach out to us on Instagram at CoffeeWCreators for any feedback, questions, or if you would simply just want to say hi, you can also do it through email at coffeewithcreatorspodcast@gmail.com. And finally, lastly, we are now uploading episodes on YouTube. So you can see me and Liz. We're waving at the camera right now. You can watch us on YouTube. Please do help us reach 100 subscribers because that way we can actually get a custom URL, which means it'll be easier for people to find us on YouTube. But for now, you can just type in Coffee with Creators Podcast on YouTube, and you should be able to, spot this goofy mug in one of the thumbnails. On behalf of my co-host, Chelsea, who we miss, she's still on vacation, we thank you for listening to the Coffee with Creators podcast, and we hope to have you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.